everyone, this is Julie Bruns. Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I want you to thrive and be happy, peaceful, and content, no matter where you are on your journey. This podcast shares stories that will show you how it can be done, no matter what your circumstances. You'll be inspired and come away with a new spark of an idea. Never forget, anything is possible. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. This helps others find our content and get happier sooner. To possibility and beyond. Okay, welcome everyone to this episode of the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I am here with Marilyn. Marilyn, tell me how to say your name, full name.
It's Marilyn Feldstein.
So something caught my eye about you, and I've been doing a lot of research and reading, so everything, of course, gets jumbled together when you're constantly, researching topics and stuff. So I remember you caught my eye because of your LinkedIn profile, your business, and just your, what you concentrated on. I just remember thinking, oh, that would be someone cool to talk to. And I also got the impression before I ever even spoke to you that you loved doing what you were doing, and it must just have been when I was reading about you. So that's a tribute to how you're, I guess, portraying yourself on LinkedIn, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So
I do. Yes, I love what I do. So.
Yeah, I got that. It's funny because you can just get that feeling with people, obviously, when you talk to them, because you can feel their energy. But before I even talked to you, I must have had that feeling because I wouldn't have reached out to you if I didn't think it was going to be a fun conversation. So thanks for joining, and I appreciate your time today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. So I like to start off these podcasts with one question and then just kind of get the ball rolling with how you got on this journey. And so if you want to tell, I'll ask the question if you just want to tell our audience, what you actually do for a living. And then, but to start that, what you did when you were growing up or attending school to take it to this path that you're on now. I know you've been in business for a long time. We talked about that before. Did you see yourself in this career, defining that career for us? And then did you always think that you'd be your own boss, your own, a business owner?
Those are great questions, Julie. So I am a career coach, a certified career coach, and I've had Career Choices Unlimited for almost 20 years. This June will be 20 years, which is pretty amazing to me because I like to tell my clients, if it feels like 20 years, then it's probably not something you love to do. But if it feels like you've only been doing it 2 or 3 years, which is what it feels like to me, then you know you're doing the right thing.
And I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a great question to say, did you know that you would be doing this? So I have to first answer that with the career that I'm in now did not exist when I was growing up. So it's something that I actually created about 20 years ago. It didn't exist then, and kept asking. I've been through 6 downsizings in my career, and I kind of half jokingly say that my goal wasn't 10, so I launched my own business. And during each one of those downsizings, I didn't lose my job in all of them, but I laid other people off, and I did lose my job a couple of times. So it makes you really question where you are, what you want to keep doing, and how you get there. And each one of my changes that I've made in my career helped me reassess where I am, what I'm really good at, what I love to do, and where I wanted to go next. And of course, I didn't have a crystal ball and have all the answers. I just knew that I had a vision of what I wanted and said, I'm going to get it. So let me back up to when I was growing up. So I know you asked that question. So I knew from about the age of 9 that I was going to college. And the reason I knew that is that my parents kept telling me that. So it was instilled in me that you're going to get a good education and you're going to college. And the reason for that was that I'm the 4th of 5 children, and both of my parents did not have college education, but they valued it. And my father was about 9.5 when my grandfather died unexpectedly, and my father had to quit school, drop out of school, which is hard for me to fathom at 9.5, and go to work. And so he went back into school later on and finished his education and received certifications and all. So they wanted their children, my parents wanted their children to have a better education than they had. And my older siblings all went to college, and they all of them had associate degrees when I was deciding to go to college, but none had a 4-year degree. So I was the first one in my family to earn a 4-year degree, and I'm the only one who has a master's degree. And so I knew I was going to college. That was a given. But when I was in high school, the question was, okay, if I'm going to college, what am I studying? What's my major? And what is that major? How does that connect to careers? So this is a long time ago before the internet. So when you did research, you went to the library. And I have a real love for libraries. And so and of course in high school we had some career fairs, and I knew what I didn't want to do, which is very common. Most people know what they don't want, but they may not know what they do want. And so I knew that I didn't want to be a hairstylist. I knew that I didn't want to be a dental hygienist. And back then women weren't dentists, so that was not even a career to think about. And so, and I'm dating myself. And so I started thinking about it, and I said, I have to have some direction. And I'm very goal oriented, so that's really important to me. So I decided that I would become a social worker. Didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that from what I understood, I was going to be making a positive difference and was going to help people improve their lives. I thought, okay, that sounds like a great career. So that was my focus. And when I went to college, of course, we have to pick a major. My first major was psychology. And then as I got more into it, and we had to do experiments on people, and I remember we had to inflict pain to see, we were doing different experiments in the lab. And I remember thinking, that is not what I want to do. I'm not inflicting pain on human beings. So I kind of panicked and said, okay, if it's not this major, what is it? Which is probably typical of most young people. People change majors many times. And so I ended up going into sociology and American studies, which turned out to be, for me, a wonderful liberal arts education, and it's exactly what I needed. And at the same time, I was still focused on, I'm going to be a social worker. Now, I didn't really know what that meant. My college roommate's mother was a social worker, and she became a supervisor. And I remember having one conversation with her, and she really didn't love what she did. So I think I kind of backed away because I didn't want her to dampen what my goal was. So that's the only knowledge I had, what little bit that was. So I knew that in order for me to go into that field, and at the time it was primarily working for the state or working for federal government, you had to take exams. So I kept taking these exams, and the more you took, the better you were, the higher your name was on the list, which meant that you would get interviewed. So it turned out that in less than a month after I graduated college, I was interviewed and landed my first social work position, which I thought was pretty amazing. Now, keep in mind, I didn't make much money, but I accomplished what I wanted to do, or so I thought. And
so hold on one second. So it's interesting that you picked psychology, and then this is a little bit too, like you said, you don't want to be hurting people with more of the science of it, or I wouldn't have even thought that would be part of it either. And then you went to the social work, which is still saying, okay, I want to help people. So you knew in the back of your mind, even at 18 years old, when you had to pick a major, you wanted to do something that was going to benefit people, that was going to help people. So you had an inkling, even though you didn't know what you were going to call it. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I knew that, and it's fascinating because, you can only really evaluate your life and career looking backwards, because when you're going through it, it's sometimes hard to connect the dots. So yes, I knew that I wanted to make a positive impact on people. And there are lots of ways to do that. And for example, going into medicine was not a good career for me because I actually had an internship in college at a hospital, and then I did that just to see if I could overcome my fear of being in
Mm-hmm.
hospitals and the smells and just just everything that's associated with that. And I knew right away it's like this, I'm not working in medicine. So so yes, I knew that it was some career having a positive influence on others. So my first position that I was offered was not a social work position. It was a food stamp certification worker for the state of Florida, which meant we certified people to be eligible for food stamps. But I was told in the interview that they told me, I know you want a social work position. We don't have one open. If you perform well in the first 6 months after you have your performance review, if you do well, the first social work position that opens, you'll get it. And so I took them at their word, and 6 months to the day, Julie, I was promoted. And I thought, wow, this is pretty amazing. And
Wow.
so I was a social worker. I'm in Florida, so I was a social worker here. And then I met my future husband, and we moved right after we were married to North Carolina. And so I landed my social work position there as well. And I had two different positions. One was working in child support enforcement, and one was in the work incentive program, which was my favorite, which was helping people get off welfare and go into the workplace.
Mm.
So that was a precursor to what I'm doing today. And so I did that. And then my husband decided after a couple of years to earn his PhD. So now we were moving again. And I know it's hard for people when we move and we make those kind of transitions, and especially for trailing spouses, for example. And
Mhm.
at that time, I was a trailing spouse, and I work with a lot of people in the military, and I know that can be a challenge for trailing spouses. But for me, it was a time to, again, reassess where am I? Do I want to continue doing this? And if the answer is no, then what am I doing? So I like to tell the story that when we decided we were moving, I really did an analysis of where am I? And I decided that I wanted to do something that was different because I wanted to make a bigger impact on people and their lives. And so I tell the story that I was standing in the doorway of my supervisor's office, and she said, "So, when you move to Pennsylvania, you are going to be a social worker, aren't you?" And I remember looking at her and I said, "Absolutely not." And she looked crushed. And she said, "What do you mean? You're really good at this." And I said, "I need to do something where I'm making a difference." And she said, "You are making a difference." And then I said, "I need to know that I'm making a difference." And she said, "Oh, you'll never know." And I said, "I need to know." And I
Oh my
remembered
gosh.
I
That's such
forgot
a,
it was, I will tell you, it was profound at that time, and I was 25 at the time. But I forgot about this because I didn't think about it until about 20 years ago when I did another assessment of where am I and where do I want to go. And I thought back over all of my life experiences and started connecting the dots. And I remembered that conversation. I can still see it and still see me standing in the doorway, and I remember thinking, I have to know that I'm making a difference. What's the point of doing it if you don't know? And
mm-hmm.
so for me, that and what I do today, I know that I make a difference. And how do I know? People write me thank you notes. People write me emails. People thank me. I mean, that that keeps me going. That's my reward
Oh,
for
that's
helping
awesome.
people making a positive impact. So I went on a journey and went into banking when we moved to Pennsylvania and found out that I had skills I didn't even know I had. I was really good at math. I knew I was organized, but I had good analytical skills. And that led me to working in financial services in management positions and operations for about 20 years, and also human resources. So
But
I'll
you
stop
were,
there.
yeah, so I was not expecting you to say banking. So you said, I'm not going to be in social work. I want to know I'm making a difference. And then
Mhm.
you go to banking, which I'm
Yep.
thinking in my head, banking, how do you know you're making a difference in banking? I was
It,
expecting you to say something else. But so
yes.
you were
Well,
the
so
HR side of it?
Well, interesting. That was my plan. After I worked at a bank, a large savings and loan in central Pennsylvania. So we were at Penn State University in central Pennsylvania. And I worked there for 4.5 years. And then my husband, after he earned his PhD, he landed a position at the university editing all of their research that came out and all of their journals. And I said, I'm getting my master's degree. So I earned a master's degree in public administration with an emphasis in human resources and management information systems. And to answer your question, my goal at the time, because I'm someone who sets goals, was to go into human resources, or so I thought. And what I've learned is sometimes what we want, it either may not be available or there might be other options that can turn out to be a really good option. So I landed not in human resources, I landed in operations, which turned out to be a really good thing for me because everything, when you talk about making a difference with people, as a manager of teams, I had a huge impact on all of my employees. And what happened I worked at AT&T, American Transtech, and while I was there, we went through 4 downsizings. And each one of those downsizings, Julie, I sat with every one of my employees, helped them understand their strengths and their abilities. I wrote their resumes. I helped them with interviewing. And I was not paid to do that. I'm sure if they knew I was doing it, they would have frowned on that. But I took a personal interest in each one of my employees and helped them land better positions. And that was a precursor to what I'm doing today.
How did you even know? No, I was going to ask you, like, someone said, yeah, go ahead and help these people. Like, they were lucky to have you, those people and the company. They didn't know you were doing it. Although, like you said, they maybe told you not to. But how did you know? What instinctively did you know to sit down and say how did you know to say that to them? Like, let's talk about what you're good at. Let's talk about, like, did anyone ever teach you that? Or you just, that just came with some of your
It's just intuitive.
masters? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a skill. It's one of my skills that I'm very intuitive. And so I am really able to assess people's natural talent, skills, and abilities. So these were my employees. I worked with them every day. And so I coached them. As before coaching, we even knew what coaching was. And
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage them. I would help. I mean, that was part of my job, was to develop my employees. So I would encourage them. If they were good at public speaking, I would give them public speaking opportunities. If they were really good and they were good organizers, I would get them on committees. I would encourage them to get out of their comfort zone. And then when I sat down with them and we would talk about, I'd say, well, have you thought about these things? Because you're naturally good at it. And they hadn't. And then that got them thinking. And so that's what I do with all my clients, is to help uncover those natural skills, talents, and abilities. We all have them. Play to your strengths. If you are doing what you are naturally good at, you will love what you do because it will not feel like work. If you're working against the grain and so you're working, it's not that you can't do things that you're not good at. You can do that. But if you're exhausted at the end of the day, then you're working against those natural talents and skills.
I love that. Yeah, and some people, I think, and growing up too, the same thing. Like, you just have to be working hard, and then you'll get to something else. But yeah, if you're working against it and you're feeling so drained, you're not. It's not supposed to be easy, as in just doing what you want. Well, just like, you'll never have to work hard at it. But working really hard at something, not being happy, does not mean, okay, eventually you'll get happy at it. Like, a lot of people, I think,
Exactly.
got that wrong. Yeah, that concept is
Absolutely.
not right. Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so I'll tell you this, if you love what you're doing because it just fits you like a glove, you will work very hard at it, and you will work beyond what is expected because you love it, because it doesn't feel like work. It's like an artist who is painting. If they're really good at it, that's not a chore. That is just or a musician or anybody. It just comes naturally. You have this. We all have them. Every single
Mm-hmm.
has some natural gift. And so, and a lot of times in the business world, because I worked in large corporations in financial services, a lot of times they're looking not at what you're good at, but what they need. And
Yes.
you need to understand what you're good at, and you need to be ready to raise your hand when something doesn't fit, to say, well, let me tell you what I can do and where I can be of benefit, because that's a better fit for me. And if it's, I mean, again, if it's not a fit, then don't be afraid to say so. So many times, and I've been there, we're afraid to say things because we think, oh my gosh, that might be the end of my career here. But you know what? If it doesn't fit, maybe it is time to move on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. If it doesn't fit, it's time to move on, or it's time to say, I'm going to work on these other things until I find something else where I'm a better fit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't just, completely stop what you're doing, but know that it isn't, and then start doing things that will help you become a better fit, or right where you are. What strengths and talents can you play to so that you aren't in this loop of not feeling.
Yes.
Hold on one second. So you kind of already asked, we talked about strengths and talents and playing to those and knowing what you're good at, your skills, your talents, your abilities, and working towards those so that you can, and what comes naturally, you're going to love it. You're going to be good at it. When you are good at it and you are playing to those natural abilities, you're going to end up loving what you do. What do you think gave you, so you said you have the intuition and that just idea to talk to these people and help them build their strengths so that they could leave that job that they were getting downsize from into something better. What do you think made you successful in that role there as HR and finance, and then getting promoted right to the social work in the beginning? What along the way were some of the common themes of your success?
Great question. I would say the first one is always setting goals. And one of the things, this is a perfect time to talk about this. I'm not a believer in New Year's resolutions, as most people aren't, but I am a believer in reassessing where you are. And you can do this every 6 months. You should definitely do it every year at the end of the year and ask yourself, do I want to continue doing what I'm doing? And that includes everything, not just the work that you're doing, but it could be if you're volunteering in organizations. It could be if you're on committees or boards, whatever it is. Ask yourself, do I want to continue doing them? If I don't, then let it go, because letting it go will give you room and space to do those other things that maybe you aren't doing, so that you can allow that space and time for that. So setting the goals, having a vision. And I would also add, I think this is really important, is once you have those goals, be aware of people around you, friends, family, acquaintances. Who are the people who support you? And who are the people who will critique what your goals are and start shooting holes in it? And the reason I say that is I can give you a lot of examples. I will give you one where I've had goals and a vision, and then people around me start doubting me. Well, what makes you think you can do that? And why are you qualified? And what I've realized and what I've learned over my life is that if it's something you have passion and energy for, go for it. You don't need other people's permission. And I'm talking about obviously not doing something that would harm somebody. But an example is one of my gifts is that I make up songs. I can't explain it. It's just periodically I've always done this. And about 25 years ago, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. So our city landed an NFL team, and the energy, you could actually feel the energy in the city. It was pretty incredible. And I was watching all of these entrepreneurs create new businesses literally overnight. We were reading about it every day and hearing about it. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, they're going to have a new team. They didn't have a team yet. It was just getting the franchise. But they were going to have a team. They would have cheerleaders. And I started thinking, they need a song, and I'm going to write a song. And so I started thinking about it, and pretty quickly it came to me. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never done anything on this scale. Most of what I had done was just playing and singing at home in the shower and in the house. But I thought, and I was a manager at AT&T, and so I came up with the lyrics, and then I created a melody, and I went on this journey to figure out how to record it, and I mean, just everything, sing in it, and it was. At the time, it was beyond my comprehension because the amount of press that I received was incredible. It was on the radio, on TV, in the news, in the newspaper. I mean, there was just so much energy, and it was beyond, as I said, anything that I had ever anticipated. And while I was going through that process, Julie, I can't even tell you the number of people who started questioning me. So the first question was, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a manager at AT&T. Second question, what is that song? What is that? It was a fight song. What does the fight song for the Jacksonville Jaguars have to do with your work? And I said, absolutely nothing. Okay, so why are you doing it? And I remember thinking, wait a minute. Who gives these people, and many of them were acquaintances, who gives them permission to doubt me, to question me? And I was intrigued by the whole process. And one day, when the Jacksonville University, we had recorded it live there, they were featuring my song with other marching band songs. It was on a Sunday, and so it was a big deal. And I was in the lobby waiting to go in, and a woman who I knew of, I didn't know her well, she was there with her son. They'd invited their high school students to come in and play with the college wind ensemble. And she said, what are you doing here? Do you have a child here? And I said, no. I said, they're featuring my song. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I wrote a fight song for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And she looked at me and said, well, what makes you qualified to do that? And by this point, I was really kind of fed up with people questioning me. I'd already done it. I thought, I don't know what the problem here is. And so she said, are you a musician? And I said, well, I played the clarinet when I was younger. That really didn't qualify me. I just make up songs. And so she said, well, I play the piano and I don't write songs. And I said, well, I guess that's the difference between you and me. And then she said, and I was trying to be polite, and she said, well, are you a composer? And at that moment I said, I am. I composed this song. I'm a composer. And I remember walking away thinking, wow. So I have, and this has happened, I actually have another song, a career song that I wrote and created a couple of years ago. They're both on my website, and which is careerchoicesunlimited.com. And I made a video of it. And what I've learned, and I create a lot of entrepreneurs with my clients, is I tell my clients, think about who you're going to share your ideas with. And if it's people who support what you're going to do, great, have them support you. But if it's people who are going to cast doubt on what you're doing, then don't tell them. Tell them after you've completed it.
Yep.
And I can't explain it, except I think we have a very judgmental society, and people want to understand the whys and the hows, but do they need to know all of that? I mean, if they're not there to support you, why do they need to know? So to answer that question, I would say follow your strengths, follow your dreams, and set the goals, and go for it. And don't be afraid to do it, even when other people might be doubting you. Just, prove them wrong. And if you look at the most successful people, that's what they do. They don't let anybody get in their way.
I love that. Don't let anybody get in your way. That's awesome. That's exactly right. Don't talk to the people. Try it. Go for it. People are going to naysay. People are going to ask questions. And I think sometimes it's even not even to judge you. It's more just to understand, like you said, or to almost protect you. Like maybe that won't work, but maybe it will, and you'll never know. But it's my idea, so that's okay. You don't need to know.
Exactly.
You don't need to know. I'm going to find out. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, and so I'll jump to where I am today. So when I had decided that I was working in human resources at a big financial services organization, and I did this assessment and said, where am I going next? I was in recruiting and staffing and had been doing that for about 6 or 7 years. And the question was, do I want to continue doing that? And I thought, you know what I really want to do? I want to do career management. And career coaching was not a career. And so it was 1999. And so I went on this journey of starting researching everything and talking to people. And I actually I was at Merrill Lynch at the time. A peer of mine and I had created a week-long career fair for our employees. And we had more than half of our employee base who went through this, all the programs. We were teaching them how to interview, how to network, how to handle their career, and they loved it and they wanted more. And they were coming to me saying, give us more, teach us, coach us, help us. So I put together a business plan, presented it to my boss, knowing that it could be rejected, which it was. And I told my husband, I said, if this gets rejected, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to do this on my own. And that was my impetus to say, I'm going to figure this out. And I did. And at the time, it wasn't, I had to really work on this a couple years because the way it looks today, it didn't look like that then. But I was going forward, and I'll tell you what really solidified it for me is that I was talking to everybody, and I had my vision, and I was telling people what I wanted to do. And my tagline is, I inspire you to gain the confidence to find the purpose and passion in your career. So when I started telling people that I was going to coach people on their career, everybody I talked to said, well, help me, help my spouse, help my child. And everybody said, and I said, I don't understand why people aren't doing this. You could do it if you lost your job, which I had gone through that a couple of times, outplacement services. I said, no, this is different. This is anybody, you don't have to lose your job to get career coaching. What if you want, whether it's, you want to be promoted where you are, or you want to move into a different position, or you are making a transition, why aren't there people helping us with this? I was intrigued that it didn't exist. And that's another thing that I do is look at the void. So there was a huge void, and I thought, I'm going to fill this void. And about 2 years after I was working on my, getting this business off the ground, there was an article in Fortune magazine. I love Fortune magazine. And the article said, if you don't have a career coach, you need to get one. And I thought, oh, great. The universe has really aligned with me. And now they're talking about it, on a national level. So again, find that passion. The career that you're interested in may not exist today. There are careers today that didn't exist 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. The fact that you and I are doing this podcast did not exist 20 years ago. You could talk on the radio, that's different. So when you think about podcasts and how fast they're growing, that's another example. And there are a gazillion examples of that.
I love that. Yes, maybe it doesn't even exist yet. I'm so glad I was taking notes while you were talking because you said so many great things, and I'm going to be using when I release your podcast. So much great insight, and I love that you are doing exactly what you set out to do, and you've been doing it successfully for 20 years, like you said, just going to show you that anything really is possible because you said, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to do this. And then you just figured it out. I'm going to figure this out. I love that. That's probably my favorite thing you said. I'm going to figure this out. Because I think so many times we just either want the answer from someone else, think that it can't be done, think about it too much, and instead just how can I, instead of when people say, how will you or whatever, or you can't, it's like, how can I?
Right, exactly. And be positive and never lose that positivity. And the figuring out part, what's so wonderful is it has to fit you. So I'm a career coach, and if you look at every career coach, we're all different. We all have a different process, and if you look at anybody in any business, so again, you make it fit what you're naturally good at, and then also you look at what your clients need. I'm a big believer in that. So I have made shifts and adjustments based on what my clients wanted. So an example of that is when I started, my vision was that I was going to be doing workshops. And I started doing that, and of course, it was a long time ago before we have the, emails and internet like we do today. But I just wasn't getting enough people in the class. I had people in the class who it just completely reinforced that I was doing the right thing. I had some huge success stories, but I wanted to have, again, going back to when I was talking about a social worker, I'm a visionary. I want to have a big impact, as big as I can. And so when I realized that it wasn't going to work that way, my clients kept asking me, because I kept trying to get people into this workshop, and people would say, well, can I meet with you one-on-one? And I would say, I remember when the light bulb went on in my head, I remember I would say, well, I can, but I have this workshop. And one day I thought, what are you doing? Just meet. No, they're saying meet one-on-one, which is going to be more lucrative. And so I had to go figure that out, Julie, because I'm like, am I doing this from my home? Am I doing this over the phone? Where am I doing it? And I'm unique in that I actually have a physical office. And I do coach people in other cities and states, but it just evolved that the majority of my clients are in Northeast Florida. I have people who drive here from other places, and I coach people long distance. And when they do studies on coaching, most coaches want to coach via phone, for example, or Skype. Most people who are getting the coaching want to be coached face to face.
In person.
And I love that. I thought, I do career coaching. I need to shake my client's hand. I need to look at them in the eye. I need to see how they're packaged. I want them to land a position that is going to fit them, that they're going to love. So I'm looking at the whole package. So for me, that's a really good fit.
Awesome. That's so smart too. It's doing it, like you said, just because someone else is doing what you're doing, you have your unique skills, talents, abilities, strengths that you are contributing to in your business, and it's never going to look exactly like someone else's. And as long as you're asking what your clients need and what fits you, those two things go together, and voila, you have a different business. Doesn't seem like a different business, but to you, it's exactly what your clients need and you need, and that's why you're thriving at it. That's awesome.
And I would add to that, Julie, thank you. I would add that for me, I'm really clear. You know, I've gone through enough career changes that and the downsizings helped me get that clarity. So I'm very clear on what I love doing, and there are things that I've done in the past that I was good at, but I just don't want to do them anymore. So if somebody calls me and they're looking for a particular resource or a tool, or they want somebody who's good in a particular area, and that's not my area of expertise, I also pride myself on knowing other resources so I can refer them, because I really want whoever is contacting me to find the right fit as well. So it's not just me just taking on everybody who contacts me. It's real important that that's a fit, because that's an important relationship.
For sure. And if it's not a good fit, it's not going to be what they need, and then the whole point of your business is lost.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's my reputation. That's it. That's my whole reputation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been so great. You've said so many important things, and I think anyone listening can relate to the struggles of either being downsized or not being happy in their current role, and being able to say, you know, what do I want to do? I love that you can set a goal at least once a year. I like every 6 months too, because I think a year's too long to waste. If you're not happy and you know that at 6 months, why wait 6 more months to do an assessment? But I love that advice too, because it's like looking at, you're not just saying, it's a fun thing to do, because you're kind of cracking the code of what makes you tick. And if you can continue to do that, you can continue to go in the direction of things that are going to be lighting you up, and then helping other people. At the end of the day, you end up helping people, whether that's what you're setting out to do or not.
Right. And I think for each individual, when I like to say, when you get up every morning, you should love what you're about to do. So you're getting dressed and prepared, mentally prepared, physically prepared. So if you don't love what you're about to do, then you need to change that. And at the end of the day, when you come home, if you're not feeling really good and energized from the amount of time and energy that you exerted during the day, then that's time. That's giving you a message that, okay, it's time to make a shift. It may not be a major transition, but it's a shift, or it could be a transition to go find something else. And I know how scary those changes are, but I think it's far worse to be at the end of your life wondering what your life would have been like if you had made a change. And that was one of the things that drove me to where I am today. I did not want to get to the end of my life, whenever that might be, and wonder, well, I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd been a career coach. Because the worst thing that can happen is you can try it and not love it. Okay, so now make another change. But what if you find out that you oh my gosh, this is an incredible gift. And that's what happened to me. I actually have a sign in my office that says, love what you do. And I see that every day. And it's amazing to me that all the things I was concerned about, they just melted away. And every single day, I get to do what I really love to do. And I know that I'm making a positive impact. And that's what I want for each one of my clients. And I know that's what you're looking for, is that at the end of the day, that it needs to be meaningful. Whatever that means to you, it needs to be meaningful to each and every person.
That's perfect. Well said. Great way to end it. So true. So true. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Marilyn, you've said so many wise things, and I can't wait for people to hear more of this good stuff, which is just, you accentuated some great tips that people can put to use right away. So it's not just fluffy talking about how great everything is, but it's how to actually get there. So thank you for those tips, because that's going to be really useful for people that are either have an inkling of something needs to change, or they're ready, which I think at the beginning of a new year is always a great time to do that. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this episode, you guys. Take care, Marilyn. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you love this content, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you found us on. You can get all my social media links in the description below. Help us keep the momentum going